Hey guys, welcome to or welcome back to my channel. I'm coming to you guys from outside and it's really bright. My eyes are already sensitive, so I can hardly see. But we're going to try to make this work because the lighting is really good outside. And in my book room, I don't have any bookshelves yet. So my room is empty. And I was like, y'all don't want to look at a boring background. So we're outside in the nature. Hopefully this mic is doing its job, but honestly, it kind of sucks. I read 14 books in the month of March. 7 were my paper just flew. My notes, not my notes. I read 14 books in the month of March. 7 were physical copies, 7 were either audiobooks or on Kindle. So let's go ahead and talk about how I like them. First up, we're starting with The Island. I can't believe that this was just in March. Like, this feels like it was honestly 2 months ago. This was a random book that I picked up in Barnes& Noble because it looked interesting. I was basically judging a book by its cover and getting a random book that I never heard of before, but that looked interesting. Basically, it is about a group of influencers getting invited to an island to basically promote this amusement park that a rich man built on the island. While they are there, someone ends up going missing, and then they eventually realize that one by one they are all getting killed off. So we are just following along and trying to figure out who is behind all this craziness. They end up losing cell service. It starts to storm. They're trapped on the island. I will say this book is very suspenseful. Like, it just gives creepy vibes, and you feel like you got to watch your bag. You're trying to figure out who it is with them. It was a very fast, fun, and easy read, and I love the premise of it. But if you hate cliffhangers, then save yourself the time because the way this book ends, you have no clarity on what happened. You don't even know if the main character made it out alive or not. And that's the thing with this author. Apparently, she leaves every book on a cliffhanger and she doesn't write a book two. So you'll just never get the answers that you need. And I get leaving a book on a cliffhanger if you are writing a book two and you're trying to like build the hype for the next book. Oh, you got to read the next book to figure out what happens. But if you're not even planning on writing a book two, what was the point in that? Like, why did you want to stress me out? I believe I gave that one a 3.5 star. I think I was just really salty about the ending. I read Home is Where the Bodies Are by Geneva Rose. This book is basically about three siblings who just lost their mom and they're going through their parents' old stuff. They come across a VHS tape, and when they watch it, they realize that their parents were hiding something huge from them. Honestly, I didn't really care for this book. I feel like it was very predictable. I knew what was going on pretty much from like 25% of the way in. It wasn't very twisty, turny like I was expecting from Geneva Rose. I've said this before, but I'm going to say it multiple times. Every time I talk about this book, it felt like a family drama. It does not feel like a psychological thriller. Also, a quick read. I did tandem read this, so I did the audiobook while reading. So that made it even faster to read, but I don't know if I would recommend it. I mean, if you just want a book towards your reading goal, then yes, but it's honestly a hit or miss. This book I got out of a little free library, so it's missing its dust cover, but it is The Couple Next Door by Sherry Lapina. This book also I feel like is kind of a hit or miss. Um it was just very stupid, honestly. The book wasn't stupid. The characters were very stupid. It's very simple, easy writing if you enjoy that type of style. Basically, it is about a couple who go to their next door neighbor's house for a little get together. Their babysitter ended up canceling on them, so they had to leave their little baby at home. But they didn't have to. They chose to leave their baby at home by itself while they went next door. They were like, "Oh, it's just next door. It's gonna be fine." They put a baby monitor on the camera, and then every 30 minutes, the mom would go check on the baby and feed it and do what she needed to do. And then the next 30 minutes, the dad would go check on the baby and do whatever he needed to do. Well, at the end of the night, when they went to go home, right before they went to sleep, they went to check on the baby and they realized the baby was not in its crib. The thing about this book is there is like a twist, there's a shocking reveal about like 50% of the way in. And being that it was so early on, hang on, my daughter wants a mic. I'll be back. So yeah, that little twist that happens around 50% of the way in. Obviously, since it's only 50% of the way in, there's a lot more that happens after it. But at the same time, a lot of it was very predictable. No, no, no. Why is she messing with my camera now? Honestly, I don't know. It was just dumb because the wife she was, it just doesn't make sense because if the baby monitor was on the baby, how didn't y'all see what happened to the baby? Right? Like, was nobody watching the baby monitor? Was it even on? Like, are you just saying that you had the baby monitor because you didn't want to look bad? Because you left your baby at home? Yeah. I didn't hate it. But it was just blah. It was just overall blah. I also read To Kill a Mockingbird. This is obviously a classic, so I'm trying to get into reading more classic literature. I just want to be a little bit more well versed on the classics. But I did read this in 8th grade, but I didn't really remember much about this book at all. It's about like injustice and racism and prejudice and just a lot of stuff going on it's the South back in 18, I don't know when this was set, like the early 1900s. I don't know. The dad in this book basically ends up defending a black man who gets wrongly accused of, I don't want to say the word on YouTube, but he gets wrongly accused of something, and he's basically defending him. That's not all the book is about, but that's like the main thing that always sticks out to me about this book. But yeah, I would recommend reading it. It's hard to read though. Good Girl Bad Blood. This is book 2 of the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. And I will say I did like A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I read that so many months ago, and I just never picked up this book because I guess it just didn't stick out to me. Like I was just like, okay, the book was cool, but like moving on. But I honestly regret not picking this up sooner because it is actually so good. The book has pictures in it and like transcripts, chat logs, just things like that. I think a map. Like it just makes it seem more realistic. And then also I tandem read this with the audiobook. And since this book has podcast elements in it, it made it feel even more real with the audiobook because it sounds like you're listening to an actual podcast. So just following along Pip's journey and just trying to figure out this whole missing persons case, it was just really interesting, and I really highly recommend that you tandem read with the audiobook because it makes it so much better. Okay, I have always been intimidated by fantasy books because one, the names and the places, it's just so hard to pronounce. But also, fantasy books are always so thick. But I forced myself to read all the books that are on my physical TBR. I'm still working on that, but I did end up reading A Court of Thorns and Roses because this has just been collecting dust on my shelves. And so I went ahead and forced myself to read it, and I actually really enjoyed it. I can't tell you what the book is about, honestly. Um, I remember pieces of the book, and I remember just being like, no, like I was attached to the characters. I think I gave it a 3.75. So I did enjoy the book. I did like it, but it wasn't the best. Like I don't see the hype of being like, oh my gosh, so amazing. But people do say book 2 and 3 are better. So I'm looking forward to checking those out. All right, last up on my physical copy books that I read in the month of March. Y'all might not like this, but I read It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. I wanted to reread all the books that got me into reading in my adulthood. And this was one of the first books that I read back in 2023 when I first started reading again. So I wanted to reread it and see if I actually genuinely liked it or if I just had nothing else to base it on. What, mama? But I do know that it was already controversial to like this book apparently because people don't like Colleen Hoover and they also feel that she romanticizes domestic violence. I know y'all like to tussle, but I don't want no smoke, okay? But I don't feel that statement is true. I guess when y'all use the word romanticize, y'all are saying that she makes domestic violence look pretty. Is that what y'all are saying? I don't know. I just don't see how. Maybe someone educate me on it because maybe I'm just ignorant on the subject, which am I though? Because I literally had experience growing up. I feel like Lily. Like I had that experience growing up watching my mom and stepdad. Um, so yeah, I feel like this book hit very close to home, even though I'm not in an abusive relationship. Okay, let's move on to the audiobooks and Kindle books that I read. I have my notes here so I don't forget. I read When She Returned by Lucinda Berry. Okay, so my phone died, so I had to move inside. So I'm gonna try to do this really fast. Sorry for any noise that happens in the background. Like I said, I don't think this mic is very good. It's basically about a mom who seemingly disappeared in thin air, and then a few years later, she ends up returning with a new baby and tells her family that she willingly left to go join a cult. I feel like this book has so much potential. It could have been such an interesting, fun, like this different type of read, especially with like the whole cult aspect. But it kind of fell flat in a lot of areas for me. A good bit of the book was just the mom telling the story of what she was doing in the cult. This book is by Lucinda Berry, and I will say that this is probably my favorite Lucinda Berry book that I've read. I read Off the Deep End by her, which was not a fan of that book at all. I think I gave it like a 2 star. Did not like that book. And then I also read Saving Noah, which I know a lot of people love. It was just very to me. Like, I don't know if it's because the subject matter or what, but I was just like, I don't know how y'all love that book so much. Maybe I can say after 3 books that I'm just not a fan of Lucinda Berry, which honestly makes sense because her writing reminds me a lot of Frida McFadden's because it's just so simple and just not very like descriptive or in-depth dialogue. It's just very like bland and flat. Like if I wrote a book, that's probably how it would be. Honestly, I'm gonna read every Frida McFadden book because it's Frida McFadden and like they're still entertaining, but they're just not the best books written. All right, Two Sides to Every Murder. This book was actually pretty fun to read. It was a very quick read. I will say this is probably the first book that I guessed every single twist and turn. Like nothing surprised me in this book. So that part of it wasn't really that great. Honestly, I can't say if this book deserved anything more than like a 2.75, other than the fact that it was just simply entertaining. But I don't regret it. Like there's some books that are low rating because they just are not enjoyable at all, but this book was enjoyable. It just doesn't deserve a high rating. I read Remarkably Bright Creatures, and I was kind of on the fence about this one because I was like, a book about an octopus. Like, are you serious right now? But a lot of people were saying it was good, and so I was like, you know what, let me give it a try. Usually the books that I feel like are going to not be great, and then I just force myself to read, are always the books that I'm end up loving so much. And that's the case with this book. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was so cute. It's way more than just a book about an octopus. It honestly wasn't too much about him. Like I thought it was going to be about an octopus's lifespan and how amazing they are, and just all these facts about octopus. But like, no, it. First of all, is it octopuses or is it octopi? Marcellus the octopus was just so cute. I love him so much, and he made me so sad at the end of the book. It was a very cute story. I don't want to spoil it. I don't want to tell you anything about the book. Just read it. I read a memoir by Jeanette McCurdy called I'm Glad My Mom Died. I will say, if you have emetophobia, just skip out on this one because I was struggling reading this book. Like almost every chapter, it descriptive. Like, please. Like, I get it. It's her story. Like, I just didn't know that going in that was, what her story was and what she had to deal with. But yes, it's but overall, it was a good book. It was a good read. I usually give all memoirs 5 stars because I feel like it's your story. Like, like I can't really give it anything less than that. The writing was good. The story was entertaining and compelling and sad and heartbreaking. Sending her so much love. Okay, the next book I read was The Gift by Frida McFadden. This is a short story, and it was honestly not worth the 2 hours that it took to read. Don't even waste your time on this book. Truly, it is not worth it at all. I have read a few short stories before, and honestly, it's hard to rate those as well because it's like you don't really have much to go off of because they can't go too in depth on the story because of how short it is. But this felt like satire. I literally was staring at the book, rolling my eyes the whole time. I was like, "Are you serious right now? Like, is this a joke?" I don't get how anybody rated that anything over 3 stars. Like that excruciating to read, truly. Honestly, it was just the dumbest thing. I have no words. We're gonna move on. All right, and then I read Divine Rivals, which yes, this is a romantasy, and I know earlier I said I'm not into fantasy, but I'm trying to open the doors to it. And when I tell y'all I loved Divine Rivals, I ate it up. As soon as I heard one person talk about Divine Rivals, I don't know why, but I just felt drawn to the book. I was like, it is calling me. I have to read this one. Like I know all the other fantasy books that people talk about. They say it's great, amazing, they're just not calling me. Like I just don't want to read it. But this book, I was like, I need to read it. I need to know what it's about. And I don't know why, but I just did. And I'm glad I did because it was a great book. We're gonna move on, but yes, that book was a 5 star. I also did read Ruthless Vows. I started it on March 31st and then I finished it on I want to say April 4th. I really love that book too. I think I gave it on a 4 star though. But both of them, amazing. Amazing books. And then the last book that I read this month was The Silent Patient. This was also a reread, and I really, really liked it the first time I read it. Again, I didn't have much to base it off of because it was one of the first books I read in my adulthood, probably the first thriller I ever read, and so I didn't have much to base it off of. So I was really interested in seeing if I would still like it now that I've read over 100 books. And overall, I still did enjoy the book. I think I gave it a 3.5 or 3.75. What, Mama? I just felt like a lot of the book was a little bit slow, semi boring, wasn't getting to the point fast enough, but also it just doesn't make sense. Once you know the ending of the book and you go back and read it, it's like this just isn't adding up. And that's the thing with thrillers, I feel like a lot of authors feel like the higher the shock value and crazy twists and turns it has, the better the book is, but that is not true. Like I feel like there's so much more that goes into making a thriller a good thriller. And I know it's probably really hard to write a book, okay? Keep people shocked, keep people surprised, all that. But like It just wasn't working. It didn't add up. But I still love the book. Like, it still made my jaw drop, but just in a way of like, dang, that's really crazy, but like it doesn't make sense. Like, it's stupid crazy, you know? Does that make sense? Am I making sense? I don't know. I really can't say much about this book without spoiling it. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. That it just didn't make sense to me. I have to be very vague about this, but if you read it, you probably know what I'm talking about. It just, here was the ending and here was the story, and it was just like a gap. So that's the 14 books I read in the month of March. Y'all let me know what your favorite read was for the month. There's Tootie. Shila's a little sick today, but she's not acting like it. She's in good spirits. If you watched to the end and you watched this whole video up until this point, thank you so much. I love you so much. Say I want to be your best friend.
Huh?
Say I want to be your best friend.
I play besties.
Say I want to be besties.
Besties.
For lifers.
Lifers.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe if you like book content, and I will subscribe to you as well if you make book content. And I will see you guys in the next video. Say bye.
Bye.